The student must from time to time look inwards, sink back into himself, take careful counsel with himself, build up and test the foundations of his life, run over his store of knowledge, ponder upon his duties, consider the contents and aim of life, and so forth. Welcome back, brothers. In this video, we are going to be discussing how to develop clairvoyance. I will be reading from an excerpt on my Kindle called The Way of the Initiation by Rudolf Steiner. Some of you will be familiar with Rudolf Steiner if you are familiar with some of the text around occultist science. I plan on doing a video on him specifically, but all you need to know for this video is that he is a practitioner of occultist science, he was a clairvoyant, and he was also a remote viewer. Before I begin to go into some of the text that allows you to start developing some of the sensory organs around developing clairvoyance, it is first very vital to understand that clairvoyance can and has been attributed to this very trite idea of seeing into the future. And I want to dispel that very quickly. Clairvoyance is more intuitive. It's about developing your intuition to such a state whereby you are able to perceive things that are going to come into your which are going to come into fruition into the not too distant future. So it's more of a development of your intuition, if anything, such that you are able to very accurately perceive things before they happen. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from chapter 1, which is called The Astral Centers in the Way of the Initiation, okay? And this is very important to preface your introduction into learning how to develop some of these key principles around clairvoyance. So it's firstly important to recognize that your intuition has no physical place on this world. Like thoughts, like feelings, they're not tangibly based in reality. And we'll circle back to that later. But the chapter begins by denoting that the astral body is the organism of the soul, is your sensory organs, like your nose, like your ears, like your mouth for tasting, smelling, and hearing. You need to come to the realization that your astral body has senses that you need to develop in turn to start to make your way towards developing your intuition, developing your clairvoyance. There comes a point where you'll be able to access this on a visual plane. So the book denotes here sensual appetites, for example, so like sexual and carnal feelings are manifested as dark red outpourings of a particular shape. So you can actually begin to see the magnetic field around the individual in a reddish color if they're experiencing those sensual feelings. Pure and noble thought is expressed through an outpouring of a reddish violet color. The clear-cut conception of a logical thinker will appear as a yellow figure with sharp outlines, while the confused thought of a cloudy brain is manifested as a figure with vague outlines. Okay? This is just giving you a precursor of where you can go and where you can develop your clairvoyance to a point where it actually manifests on the visual spectrum. It's the physical and the astral starting to come to a point of connectivity. But let me get into the 8 factors that are going to be crucial for you to begin to make the journey to a point where we can start to see feelings in a way. The sense organs which are now to be considered are seen to exist in the following parts of the physical body. So we must come to an understanding where these sense organs lie. And some of you, this is going to be nothing new, as I will explain just now. So the first is between the eyes. The second, the larynx. The third is in the region of the heart area, the fourth in what is called the pit of the stomach, the fifth and sixth situated in the abdomen. Some of you will already come to know these as the chakras or chakras, and they're energy centers within the body which express a certain characteristic of the soul throughout. So those are the centers, and we must come to a point where we're acknowledging them and then beginning to cultivate them. Okay, these lotus flowers are present in the underdeveloped person of dark colors and without movement, so they're inert. People who don't come to the understanding that there are expressions of the soul, be that in the way we communicate, in the way we love, communicate through love, are unaware that these wheels are turning inside them and expressing that particular energy. The 8 practices that need to be developed in order for you to come to a place where you are clairvoyant, essentially. So, number 1, the first depends on the manner in which we are receiving ideas. Okay, this speaks about people being led by ideas, indoctrination, things like radicalization of ideas. It's often interesting to think about, do people have ideas, or do ideas have people? And this is what this particular point begins to speak on. Only when one begins in this manner to take one's education into one's own hand do they really begin to be effective. Okay, so coming from a place of purpose, of being very selective about what information you allow into your environment. That is the first path to clairvoyance. The second of these functions is concerned in a similar way with the control of the resolutions. One should only make resolutions after a well-founded, well-considered of even the most insignificant points. So this is speaking on thoughtless deeds. We need to be very deliberate in our actions, in our communications, when we're beginning to articulate ourselves through this world. There's no room for mindlessness or drifting, as our friend Napoleon Hill would say in Outwitting the Devil. You don't want to be a drifter. You don't want to be nihilistic. You want to be deliberate in your actions and your communication. The third relates to speech. The occultist student should only utter what is sensible and what is purposeful. This is coming. Again, you can see how these are starting to remark to the energy centers. So we're talking about the larynx here, the throat chakra. So we're talking about purposeful in your speech, being truthful, being honest, and not speaking on anything that is going to take you away from your path and your truth. Okay? Saying less if necessary, but being sensitive to not speaking too much. Okay, we need to cultivate that balance, and that's the final point here. He never speaks without grounds for what he says. He seeks to use neither too many nor too few words. Okay, so concise. The fourth function is in regulation of outward action. This student seeks to direct his actions in such a way that it fits in with his actions of his fellow man and the peculiarities of his environment. He rejects all actions that are disturbing to others or that are antagonistic to those which are customary around him. We want to be in a state of harmony with not only our nature, but our fellow human beings. Just because we disagree with someone doesn't mean we need to be combative. On the converse end of the spectrum is just because, again, we may have that disagreement in terms of our belief systems, our values, doesn't mean there is something valuable and attainable that is going to be congruent with you growing spiritually by listening to this individual, by indulging them. Where he is caused to act by some external suggestion, he considers how carefully he can best respond. Again, so it's not being impulsive, it's not being led by the irrationality of the thoughts or the impulsivity of the feelings. It's being mindful, being aware, being sensitive to those energies and acting in consistency for where you want to go spiritually. The fifth activity here is to be noticed in regards to the management of your entire life. No insignificant thing whatsoever. It says here that the student must conform to live in congruency with both nature and spirit, never over hasty, and never is he idle. Look, my friends, it can be very challenging we can be very impatient in terms of where we want to go, what goals we would like to see to come into fruition in our life. We can go balls to the wall and expect to get those desirables coming to us in quick succession. Or we can come at this from the other end of the spectrum and be lazy, be we could be stooped in some kind of apathy. What it's saying here is, again, it's coming back to that word balance. You are on the right path, and you should neither be overexerting yourself nor underexerting yourself. This student looks upon life as a means for work as he lives accordingly. He arranges habits and fosters health so that a harmonious life is the outcome. We're looking for harmony here, not looking to squeeze too tightly or hold on to it too loosely. We need a balance there. 7, we're coming to the end. I understand this is a long video, my friend, so I appreciate you staying with me here. We have 2 more and then we'll conclude. The 7th change in the life of his soul deals with the effort to learn as much as possible from life. We must come to an understanding we need to be a student of life. Never the master, always the student. Coming from the perspective that there is always something to learn in every given situation, that again, going back to one of the previous points, we never come from a place where we are above it all and that we have already learned all there is to know about a particular subject, about a particular person, and that we are in a way elevated above the rest. For there is always some utility in every single passing experience. You need only cultivate your attention in order to do so. Finally, the 8th is this. The student must from time to time look inwards, sink back into himself, take careful counsel with himself, build up and test the foundations of his life, run over his store of knowledge, ponder upon his duties, consider the contents and aim of life, and so forth. In short, my friends, never lose your curiosity. Always ask those self-reflective questions in deep states of meditation, and make sure that you are acclimating a portion of your day to manifest this, to practice this, to cultivate this, okay? Can be in the morning before you wake up, having those deep conversations with yourself, or I like to have those conversations with myself just before bed. And just one last point, I'm just going to conclude on this notion that, look, it can be very trite to look at these things and think, oh, of course, these are the things we have to do to live a good life. I need to live in purpose. I need to be inquisitive. I need to speak truthfully and all XYZ. We must come to a axiomatic understanding that if you are to cultivate and develop the spirit, the soul, things that are not tangibly based in physical reality, then you will have to practice the things that which are not immediately obvious to an individual. You cannot often see how someone is expressing love, see how someone is expressing purpose, truth, and all these things we have spoken about, until you come to understand that you need to develop these sensory organs. The organs you cannot see. And this point really ties it all together. If I think or say anything which does not harmonize with the truth, I kill something in my astral organs. Okay? even although I believed myself to speak or think from intentions ever so good. It must be remarked that the signs of clairvoyant faculties cannot appear before a certain stage of this development is reached. My friends, I know this is a very long video, and I commend you if you're staying this far with me. This is a very interesting topic, one that needs certainly more information around around how to measure how you're developing as an individual. But if there's anything you can take away from this, is that understanding that clairvoyance isn't something, these skills are not something that you can measure by science, because it's the antithesis of it. Okay, I will come back to you very soon with a video on Steiner and some information about his practices in the occult science. If you enjoyed any of this video, my friends, feel free to subscribe to me, and I will see you very soon in the next one.